What I'm going to do today is show you how to replace a front left-hand side door lock actuator on a 2002 Volvo V70XC. This is what the part looks like when it's removed, and it sits like this within the door itself. What was happening was I was able to unlock the doors without issue, but if I tried to lock the doors using the valet key, every door would lock except this one. It would the button would go down and then it would pop back up immediately. What I was stuck doing was, to lock the car, I would have to manually press this button and hold it down so it wouldn't pop back up. Close that. That one's now locked, and then to lock the rest of them, I would do that. Some research on forums suggested that my problem was the door lock actuator in the driver's door. Start by drilling out this rivet. Start with a small bit. Get it in the center. Difficult part of the job, as well as the most tedious. You can appreciate. I'll see the rivet spinning out. Okay, I'm going to try and get a larger bit in there. Let's see how I do here. Try not to scratch the door. No, that's not going to work. I'm going to have to grip that rivet with a pair of pliers or something. So I'm going to grip the rivet with something. This. That should do it. Through. Next step, pop out this plastic cover here. Just pry it out. Try not to drop it on the ground. That's out now. Go all the way around and push each of these pins inwards. Anything will do. A lot more difficult when it's cold out. Underneath, two underneath, three underneath, two on the side. Now these will come apart sometimes, and so when you take the door off, you gotta watch out that you don't lose them. What you can do is take them out, use a trim clip of sorts. Pry that out. Two pieces. Doing this, normally I just pull the door panel off, but because there's snow on the ground, I don't want to lose any of these, so I'm trying to pull them off first. Seems to be working well. That's it. Now you gotta pop off the front of this door handle. I was able to pry it apart with my fingernail, and now if I get the plastic pry tool, take it in there like so. Okay, it pops right off. Normally bottom pops off and then you gotta pry the top off, but we're all good. Don't lose this piece of foam that was in the plastic cover here. Next step is to take these two screws off. They're T25s. They're deep in there. pretty good. Don't lose those 2 screws if you can help it. And then the next step is really just to lift the door off. Done that. There are a few things you've got to unplug inside. You've got to unplug the speaker. You've got to unplug the door panel, the door electrics, and you have to unplug the handle. Speaker first. Press down. Door panel is a pain. There are 2 harnesses, and in both cases, the clip is in behind the little push pin. And then for the door, this usually just goes right out like that. So for this one, you can see the pins at the back, or the push clip is at the back, or not. Here we go. Door panel's off. Be careful not to lose the top nub. It pops right out, this little circular bit. And be careful not to dislodge the waterproofing at the top. So the next step is to take this off enough to give you access to the motor. And it would help if it were warm. So what I'm going to do is close the door, warm up the car for a while, come back out, because this glue, it's good to have it. I'd like to be able to re-glue it in place once we're done, and it looks like I'm going to have to take that off a bit more. So let's let the car warm up and come back. Next step, take out these 3 screws here. It's a T30. 1, 2, 3. Next step, you can't really see it, but there are 2. Oh boy, there we go. There are 2 latch release rods that you need to just pull out towards the front of the car, and both of those will pop right out of the lock itself. I have an issue with this wire harness. It was, there's a little plastic tab that fits into the side of the metal in the door, and it was just difficult to get out, and you have to get it out to get more room for the motor. The problem I'm encountering right now is that there are these 2 little levers on the far side of the motor that are preventing the motor from coming out. So I'm thinking that if I lift and then rotate or something, it's a tight fit. End of story. You really have to do a number on this window guide to get it out. There we go. Well, the window guide has come right out, so I might as well take it right out. Deal with that after I put the motor back in. Oh, I see that just slides into place, so I've just bent the crap out of it, so I'll try and fix that up on the way back in. Moral of the story, take that window guide out before attempting to take the motor out. Slip it in behind. So, next step is to dislodge T30. So here's the learning. This rod here, the window guide, fits into a slot up inside, and then obviously gets riveted in at the bottom. Where's the bottom? Fits into a slot at the top, it gets riveted into the door at the bottom. The easiest way to get the motor out is to first pull this right out before you attempt anything, and that'll give you all the room you need to maneuver that motor out. I did it backwards and ended up bending the top, and then have now rebent it so that it hopefully will fit back into place up here. So the new motor's in, or at least I've put the 3 screws back in, 1, 2, 3. I have not plugged it in yet, and I have not reconnected. I did actually reconnect the two, it's hard to see back here. There we go. The 2 rods back there, they just get pressed in to their clips. So that's back in. I have not put anything back in yet. However, I did put this little plastic grommet back on. The replacement lock didn't come with one, so I popped it off the old one and placed it on the new. So you need to take out this little plastic bit. Plastic bit. Pop that in here. Don't lose it. I recommend you put that in before putting the motor in. So before doing anything further, I'm going to try and slot this back in. Move the rubber out of the way, so it has to fit underneath the rubber guide for the window. Slide it up using the rubber guide as a helper. Slip it inside as soon as you can, and then feel around for the piece that this fits into. Ooh, easy to find. Very easy to find, it fits right into it. And then fit the window guide rubber back in as best you can. And let's see here. You'll be able to tell if you've done it high enough. If the hole lines up properly, which of course mine does not now. Great. Interesting. Things in the way. I can't get the. There we go. Takes some finagling, but it eventually goes up high enough. So I'm gonna go get a riveter and pop this back into place. All I could get my hands on in my toolbox were some plastic rivets for trim. They're the right size, and I think they provide enough strength for this job. So let's give it a try. Worst case, I'll just have to do the job again. They're in. Line up the hole. Seems to be fine. And it does provide some rigidity. Yeah, it looks good. Looks fine. So the window guide actually fits in nicely into the hole here. So you gotta press it back in to make sure that it sits on both sides of the U-channel, the metal U-channel. At this point, the lock's back in, the guide for the window's back in. The next step is to plug the motor back in, or sorry, plug the assembly back in so it goes up here, and you'll see here's the back side of it. And actually, I guess I'll tape this back up given that it was taped to begin with, probably due to weather, etc. So let's do that before we do anything further. right, does the trick. Plug it back in. Good, wait for the snap. Next step is to fit this back inside here. Slip it back through. That's for the handle. This goes down inside like this. Slip it inside like this. And then rotate this back behind it. Like that. Slip it inside. And take your finger and snap that in so that it's nice and solid. This is ready for reinstallation. I can put this back on. And of course, now that it's freezing out, this won't stick properly. Electric tape, maybe not the best type of tape for this. Well, it's better than nothing. Okay. We're ready for the door to be put back on. So the only trick to this is to make sure that once you've plugged everything back in, the only trick to this is to make sure that you lift the panel over top of the nub before you get everything in place. Everything else is pretty straightforward. Don't forget to reconnect the door. Just press it back in. Everything's reconnected. Lift it over the knob. Important part to getting the door back on. There's three things. Make sure the nub comes through. Make sure that the nub cover, that you don't lose it. And make sure that the weatherproofing is nice and tight along the top. If all those things are happening, the door is properly hung and you can put the clips back in. What you want to do is pop the nubs out first. So pop them forward, that, put it in, and then press the nub in place. Put it in, press. Pop out. This one's not. There we go. Put it in, press. Pop out. Put it in. And press. Let's do another one. There we go. Press. There we go. And one more over there. There we go. Should click twice. So good. Let's deal with that last one. The last one's in. Next step. 2 screws in the handle. 2 T25s. There we go. Get in there. These 2 screws are what gives you the sturdiness when you open and close the door. So You know, don't kill them, but get them in tight. We are good. And then the handle just snaps back on. Mirror cover, you put the pad on first. Slip this on over the top. It should snap in. Just make sure you got the holes aligned here. There we go. In. Doors back in. All clips are on. Lever now works correctly. We're good to go. Unlock. Lock. Success. I have noticed the nub is a bit low. I suppose I could go in and fix that, but I don't know, you can reach and you can press, so it's probably fine. Unlock. Lock. And there we go. Locked. 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 Here's a close-up of the door lock actuator. This was the original. Part number, God, it's hard to tell. It ends in 548. There are 3 part numbers for this that are really equivalents. The first ends in 548. The other 2 part numbers are this one is 8650548. There's another one that is 307-84976, and a third one is 306-99750. All of those are equivalents. So a couple of things here. I had a lot of trouble getting this plug off. And it looks like, of course, as usual, the release lever's on the back side. So it looks like the release lever is in this little maybe rectangle here, maybe. And this is the lever that controls the actual knob, the door lock knob. And that's the bit you need to put that white plastic insert into. These are the 2 pieces that connect to the rods. One rod, so these have to be turned like so. And what happens is the rods come up from above like this, and they just get pressed in. They're threaded, and once you press it in, once you press the rod in, it snaps into place. So I think this one is for this one's for the door handle, I think, and this one's for the central locking mechanism that works off of the lock control module. Well, those are the highlights. I could have, I suppose, tried to spray liberally inside to see if that would have fixed my problem, but I got a bit impatient and just wanted to get the job right the first time. And it's a lot of trouble taking this thing out, or it's enough trouble that you don't want to be having to do it twice, and particularly in the cold weather.